Throughout this campaign, we've been profiling some of the most powerful people influencing voters. So this week, well, a look at Yves-François Blanchet. He is leader of the Bloc Québécois, who was nowhere at the start of the campaign, but now his party could determine who forms the next government. His message to Quebecers: don't trust anyone but him. Yves-François Blanchet is well known in Quebec. During the 90s, he was the agent for a rock star, Éric Lapointe. After a stint in the music biz, Blanchet served in the PQ government and then became a pundit on TV.
Politique québécoise.
Now he's a politician who's reinvented the Bloc. The message isn't sovereignty anymore, it's nationalism.
Vous optez pour des femmes et des hommes qui vous ressemblent.
Choose someone who resembles you. That's how Blanchet closed the first big French debate. It's a tried and true path to winning over Quebecers, an idea that's become the Bloc campaign slogan in television ads.
La langue, la culture, la laïcité, c'est nous.
Language and culture, it's us. And on billboards. Quebec knows what's right for Quebec, like the popular but controversial Bill 21 on religious symbols that Blanchet has turned into a test for the other federal leaders, demanding they not intervene, sending the message that only you get or only you respect Quebec. It's a formula that's worked before, like in 1988 during Brian Mulroney's sweep, and in 1993 for Lucien Bouchard, who founded the Bloc after Mulroney's Meech Lake failed. It worked again for Jack Layton in 2011. So what about now, 2019? Now, the polls suggest the Bloc could win big, a small party that could now triple the number of MPs going to Ottawa.
Parce que le Québec, c'est nous. Merci.
Joining me now from Montreal is the CBC's Jonathan Montpetit, who is covering the election in Quebec. So, Jonathan, can you explain to us what exactly is the appeal? It sure sounds like it's not sovereignty anymore.
The Bloc has basically reinvented itself into a nationalist party. You know, it's obviously still will be able to draw on the support of the pure et dur sovereigntists that exist in the province. But basically, it's picking up a formula that was used very successfully by the CAQ party, the party that forms the provincial government here in Quebec. And basically, what it was able to do is present nationalism as a third way between sovereignty and federalism. So, not as scary as sovereignty, but it's also still able to kind of express Quebec's unique cultural identity in the form of political demands, which many Quebecers feel federalism isn't able to do.
So many seats up for grabs in Quebec. All of the leaders have spent a long time there. Scheer has made a particular effort. There was even a Canadian press headline that said, Scheer makes goo-goo eyes at Quebec and says yes to almost everything. He's trying hard.
He's trying very hard. The party has put an enormous amount of effort to try to pick up seats in Quebec, and it did so by trying to revive an old image of a Quebec nationalist, the Bleu, which described the kind of Quebec nationalists that had joined the Progressive Conservative Party under Mulroney and allowed him to win two back-to-back majorities. The problem, though, is Scheer hasn't been very convincing to Quebecers for two reasons. One, his social conservatism on a lot of values don't align up with where Quebecers' beliefs are. And two, his energy corridor, which in Quebec sounds like a federal government wanting to put a pipeline through the province. And so it's very difficult for him to say, on the one hand, I will respect all Quebec's jurisdictions, maître chez nous, line that he used, and on the other hand to say, but when it comes to a pipeline, you guys are going to have to sit there and accept it. So I think that's one of the reasons why his message hasn't really been getting across.
How, Justin Trudeau, native son of former Prime Minister, how's his message gone over? Why hasn't he stopped the Bloc yet?
That's a really good question, Wendy. I think one of the things in Quebec is his approach to federalism, his approach to multiculturalism really isn't seen as being sensitive to the cultural anxieties that exist at the moment. Quebecers are very anxious about their ability to preserve their collective identity. And for a long time, multiculturalism has been kind of seen as diluting the power and the influence of Quebecois French-Canadian culture. And so the Trudeau last name in Quebec can cut both ways. I think it worked well for him in 2015, but after 4 years in government, that kind of multicultural approach is beginning to seem like it's out of touch with what Quebecers need to hear.
So is everyone surprised by the Bloc was almost dead? They seem to have been rather successful with this new message.
What did Blanchette do? He basically refashioned the Bloc in the image of the CAQ and the image of this nationalism and not sovereignty. We saw how well that worked in the provincial election last year. That it would work again well this year, I think, is not that surprising. It's really the speed at which he's been able to, completely refashion what the Bloc is all about.
Well, we'll see what happens tomorrow. So interesting. Thanks so much, Jonathan.
My pleasure, Wendy.